3, 2, 1. All right. Sorry. It's a group of timers. We're going to start on time. I'm Chris McDonald. Chris Matt. So if you just yell Chris, one of us will answer. And we've got Kevin as well. If you've got any money questions ever, Kevin's your guy. So we're going to be talking about RaceDay Registration and the CheckIn app. Not necessarily like how to use it top to bottom, but how you as a timer can use it functionally at events. There will be some like how-to points. Don't be afraid to ask questions. We will have time at the end to go over the questions. I know it might seem weird, but when you ask the question, we're going to repeat the question because we want it on the microphone. And then at the end, Kevin will bring around a handheld just so that when we record these and have them for later viewing, we'll be able to hear that audio. Sound good? So this is going great already. Just like any event, it's not if something's going to happen, it's when something's going to happen. So obviously, this is a great lead-in for most of what we're talking about. With those of you that are still doing paper reg, you can lie to me and say that you've never had a paper registration form that was illegible. And if you say you haven't, either A, you've never put on a race before, or B, you've never actually taken paper reg before. So it's not if you're going to have issues, it's when, it's how you deal with them. So I'm going to go into your role as a timer, and we kind of talk about this with some of the Timer Tip Tuesdays. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Timer Tip Tuesdays, we do this almost every Tuesday, a short little how-to on either our tools, timer business practices, things like that. So some of this might be review. For some of you, it might not. So there's kind of two schools of thought with timing. One is just timing. And I think most of the people, if you're here at a symposium like this, you're not falling into that. You're not showing up to an event and just throwing down mats, crossing your fingers that the data is clean, getting in a CSV file, and not communicating with the RD at all, right? And some of you might be like, we have a couple of events like that, and it is horrible. So most of you want a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more structure to how things are handled in advance. And so you have more of an expanded service package. And so that might be just timing plus RunSignup backend support, on-site services such as registration, check-in, and then training people how to use tools. So making RaceDay better, this part is like going into that timer services plus package. So by taking away those paper forms, again, we already talked about it, you're mitigating human error by stopping the doctors from writing on wet paper, and then having somebody run it over to you, and you having to type in, I don't know, it's a big event, 1,000 over the course of 2 days. So the big thing here is limiting the number of times people touch data. I think it's, somebody's going to correct me, I'm sure, but it's like 2.5 or 2.7% human error, like just general, like average human error. So every time that data is touched by someone else, anytime it's transcribed, you're getting another 2.7% error going in. So just keep that in mind. Like every time you have to take something, change it, and re-push it up, you're adding potential error in there. And so by using some of these tools, you'll be reducing those touch points. Here you go. This is it. It took me a long time to find horrible penmanship. So this reduction of stress is making your race day better. So basically like by assigning bib numbers and having check-in statistics and not having to wait for data to come to you to be able to manage it all live online. Now, there are some assumptions here that you're going to have internet access. And so for those of you that don't have like 4G LTE modems, get them. Like you're like, oh, I don't want them. Like the bus is leaving. You don't have to. I'm not telling you have to. The bus is leaving. You can choose to be on it or not on it, but it's going to races in the future, right? So if you're not bringing internet for yourselves, you need to be. That's just my personal opinion. But I'd be willing to bet, I mean, show of hands, who's bringing your own internet? Who's bringing MiFi? Who's bringing, yeah. So like almost everybody in here, I think at this point is bringing their own connectivity. So that's just something to consider as well in terms of making your race day better. So the empowering of volunteers now, making race day better for you is helping train those volunteers. And I'm not saying train all the volunteers. I'm saying train the race director on how to use the tools, whether registration or check, add data as a timer, right? Bib numbers aren't assigned, or they're assigned incorrectly, or you don't get all the data in registration. Like I remember being in an event, and someone was like, "Hey, what about the results for the collegiate division? Who's in collegiate division? Oh, that started." So I was like, "It was a good start. How do we know who started first?" They're like, "Oh, I guess we don't have a collegiate division." You know, so and that made me look bad, but we didn't know. So know how easy it is to get this data in and out, how to access it, and how you're now a little bit more hands off and a lot less stress on site. And so again, we're minimizing touch points and using these bidirectional syncs. I will say our internet connectivity is not great up here, so it keeps dropping. Cool. Oh, gotcha. Bringing it back up. Oh boy. All technology failing. I dig it. But how? So again, you guys are here. So you're taking the time to learn the software and the options. You do need to learn a process that works for you and your team. And what this means is not necessarily like the process for being here or learning, but training new timers, training your secondaries, and also training the events. Like people have asked me like, "Hey, can you provide me with a PDF file of how to do this stuff?" I'm thinking, do you really want something that says RunSignup on it? Or do you want something that says your timing company on it? Like take the training, take the tools the way you want your timing company to use these products and make your own checklist. It's not hard. If you don't know how to do it, train someone new and make bullet points, or have them make bullet points of what you're training them on, and then take that and make it pretty, right? Drop your logo on there. And that way you can email it out in advance. People are kind of getting the ballpark training. So the implementation plan is quite literally on site with how you're going to roll this out. And then the suggested toolbox that I would suggest with this is the bib assignment, race day registration, check-in app, race day scoring or race director, race day results, and then obviously you can add in the photos, videos, and finisher certificates. Is this thing working again? Sweet. Okay, so packet pickup. A lot of people ask me, how do I set up packet pickup? 2 schools here. I go with the second one. And so this is fine. No big deal. You've got check-in tables. They are focused on pre-registered athletes. Check-in, they can be alpha, not alpha, it doesn't really matter. The registration is only for on-site people. And the on-site are doing everything from registration, taking payments, bib assignments, giveaways, right? There is no problem with this, except for the potential for people to have different packet pickup experiences, right? And how many of you guys have used, I won't call you out if you're still using, but have used this process? I think everybody's been around this one before. And so here, everybody's pre-registered. This is where if you've got a larger event, like 3,000 to 4,000 people, they all show in, check-in lines could, even with the check-in app, you could have lines, right? But let's say nobody's there for packet pickup or for race day reg. So now somebody who hasn't registered walks straight up, registers, get their stuff, and out before somebody over here. You know what happens? These people get ticked off. They do. They're like, why did I have to wait in line when that person, sure, they paid $10 more, but they're in and out. You've got to have another set of bibs over there. You've got to have giveaway items and stuff like that. So everything's parsed out. So this is not my favorite. It works just fine, but it's not my favorite. This is like, I should have been a football coach, I feel like, with X's and O's and stuff. So this is how I work it. And that is everyone in check-in is the exact same. We then have registration off to the side. Registration literally only goes through registration, and that's it. So we have a registrar, somebody's taking money, that kind of thing. On RunSignup, it's all dumping back in. So I make sure we have Wi-Fi in here, and all of this 30 45 maybe seconds later, they're in the check-in app, right? So everybody, and we're usually dynamically assigning bibs. So there's no lines that anybody has to get in. If somebody doesn't want to stay in line, we've got QR codes printed about so they can get in and out quickly. But everybody has the same packet pickup experience. And for those of you who are like, what about giveaways? Inventories on the back end of RunSignup really help you manage the expectations with giveaways seamlessly, because they're going to sync live. So when they go in to select, I want a small, it'll say sold out, or I don't know if it's a sold out or a line through it. Either way, they can't select it if your inventories are gone there, right? So keep that in mind. So we'll go into race day registration. And so the intro here, and most of you guys know this, so I'm not going to read everything, but it'll be nice for you guys to have it later. The biggest thing is test. I almost want you to say it with me, because we need to, like, every single time we do a presentation for you guys, test it out. Every single thing we talk about, test it out. Most call up, email, hey, will this work? All we're doing is testing it for you. Same thing. So if you want to know what it's going to be like, test it out in advance. You know, have the athlete experience. Go through everything step by step, and make sure that you have internet connection. We talked about that multiple times already. Oh gosh, are your computers updated? Is the check-in app updated? and I joke because there was a time where everybody didn't have unlimited data plans, and we had an event that had not updated any of their Chromebooks. They turned them on, turned them on their MiFi. All of them updated. It crashed their data plan, and they didn't have on-site registration on computers anymore. This is real. So test things out, make sure everything's updated. And what I would suggest doing is not doing this on Friday morning. Monday is a good day to test things out. Even a Monday a week beforehand is a good day to test things out. And then, again, going back to the setting expectations in advance, putting that out there, or making sure the race director is putting that out there in terms of if on-site registration is available, if you are accepting cash payments, or you're only accepting credit cards. You do have to, and I bet every single person in this room, myself included, has messed up this one right here. And that is what, sorry for those of you in the back, it says, ensure you have registration open at RunSignup if taking online registrations. And some of you guys are like, yeah, but if you're only taking them on the registration kiosks, you still have to have registration open at RunSignup. And the first time everybody sets this up, they're like, oh, well, I don't want online registration open. I just want this on-site registration open. And so they shut it down. They're like, why does it say close? I'm like, well, open it up. just make sure you have a registration timeline open. And then train your volunteers or staff on how to handle questions and or issues. Okay. So I think we've talked about most of this. The basic sense of this is you can use two different types. One is, and I think that's the next one. Well, sorry. The benefits here are a quick, easy setup, scales across multiple devices, and this is on the back end. You can copy the URL. It's not a long URL, and put it on multiple devices. The big thing to know is if you're working in your RunSignup account on your computer and you're going to be using that, the moment you log in to on-site registration, it's kicking you out of your account, right? So just keep that in mind. If you're testing things out, I usually have a second computer because I want to keep testing things. I want to work on the back end on this one and like play with the actual on-site registration pages to see what they look like on the other computer. It's super simple to use. All the finances are in one place, right? Finances being in one place. And the big thing here is the tax implications. So for those of you that never think about sales tax, thank this guy and Steven, because they did a lot of work. And the beauty of doing this is all of that is housed within that same system. So you're covered under the way RunSignup has set up the basically all the I don't even know what the right terminology is. Yeah, the financial stuff. That's it. Yeah, the financial stuff is all in there for you. And then it fully integrates with all of our other tools. So we have three options: RaceDay Reg, QR codes, and paper registrations. We'll throw paper reg out unless you're in the middle of the woods, you don't have any connectivity, you know you're not going to. People will ask like, why would I ever do paper reg? There is a time and a place for it. Let's just own that one, right? But for the most part, unless you're doing way out races, you're not going to be doing much paper reg anymore, or shouldn't be. It's just an extra burden on you. The other two, you can pair together very well. And by adding QR codes, and by QR codes, what I mean is there's quite literally on the back end of RunSignup a QR code that you can copy and paste onto like a piece of paper, print out, put them on the wall. Don't want to stand in line for registration? Register here. And you can set up fast registration modes on the QR side. So anybody that goes through that doesn't answer all the questions. Personally, I don't like doing that because I like getting all their information. They're not standing in line. They're on their personal device. A lot of times it auto-fills their personal information, right? So might as well get all of their information since they're only on their phone. On RaceDay Reg, absolutely limit out what they're putting in there. Make sense? So how do we use it? I'm going to run through these pretty quickly because I think some of you guys have done this before. If you go into RaceDay Tools and on-site registration, you do have to enable it. So as Matt Sinclair would say, click that button. So you're going to enable save changes. Once you do that, you get a lot more information. So you get a shareable link that will go out to other devices. This is not the QR code to put on the wall. With me? You put that on the wall, everybody's gonna be like, what's the password? Yes. Oh, can you back up a little bit? So I guess I need to back up too. So this is not the QR code to put them on the wall, right? We'll get to that one in a second. This is a QR code if you want to scale it across other devices to set up the registration kiosks. And then you can put in your password to get into that registration, a cache password if you want to accept cash, and this cache password is something that just the volunteer would know. And then you have a lot, you can set up what events you're able to register on site for. You can limit what fields people are registering. And then it's now an auto field, but allow participants to register without creating an account, which is, it's auto on now. If you turn that off and call us saying everybody's complaining, I'm pointing my finger at you guys for turning that off. Okay, leave it on. They will go bananas if they have to put in their password, create an account and all that stuff. Just don't do it. It's good. This one right here is good where it is. So once you've done that, you can, and you click on the link to go into the actual expo mode or kiosk mode here. Can't really see it, but there's a password field right there. You put that password in. Again, remember, if you're on that same computer that you're working on, it's going to log you out. The moment you do it, you're now into your on-site reg on that Chromebook, on that computer. You do not need a super hardcore fancy computer to do this. Chromebooks are perfect in this capacity. All of you just missed Prime Day. I'm sure there's going to be other sales and used things coming out to buy cheap devices that you can rent and make money on if you so choose. Some timers don't realize you can actually like recover some of your cost here. So it is something you can do. You need to train the volunteers, show them what it looks like, and maybe go through registering yourself. So, or have a volunteer register themselves so they can see what a password payment looks like at the end. And then the volunteer is going to make sure that once this person's registered, they're going to make sure they click at the very end to reset the screen for the next registration. And so the QR code registration, so if you go into promotion and links, so not the last one I showed you, promotion and links, there's a bunch of QR codes here. It's QR codes for results that you can print out. It's QR codes for registrations for all kinds of different parts, right? So when you get to the sign up link right there, you can copy and paste that QR code into a Word file or something like that, print it out. So why? Again, we've already talked about this. It takes the pressure off of the line of the kiosk. You don't need as many kiosk computers, and it reduces the wait time. And so once scanned, this is what you're looking at right here. So that if you were to walk out, actually, this is probably grainy enough that if you did scan it with your phone, it wouldn't work very well. But if you're on the back end and you want to test it, you can quite literally use your phone and scan this on the back end of your event and see what it looks like. So now on to the check-in.
All right. So we're going to go through kind of a high level overview of the check-in app. We're not going to go into details on creating the presets or the configurations, but we do have the demo room downstairs where you can test that sort of stuff. And we have people that can walk you through it and show you on their devices on how it works. So we're going to take a look at everything now. So first thing is from a timing standpoint is it needs to be set up in RunSignup first. So if you don't have access to the dashboard on RunSignup for your race directors, try to get access to that. Try to be able to set it up. So the first thing is once you get it set up in RunSignup, go into your app, search for your race. That's the first key thing that I see from a support standpoint is, hey, I set up the check-in app, can't find my race. Usually it has to do with the date. That's all that it is. You have to make sure it's enabled. You can enable those dates for a longer period of time, especially in testing. It will not break anything on the RunSignup side. You can test it way before the event if you'd like. So we're going to go through locating your race, creating and editing presets, actually checking in a participant, and then some of the additional features. Plus, we have some links that will be included in a slideshow. So if you guys want to see videos that we've created or a deep dive into anything, you'll be able to watch them there. So the first thing is this is where it is located in the dashboard. So it's under RaceDay Tools, RaceDay Check-in. You're going to want to select the mobile app. You will have a password here. One helpful tip. When you set your password, there is no way to know what it is. So write your password in the password hint. Write the exact password that you use. The only people that have access to that are the people with the back end access to the dashboard. So you're not, go ahead.
You guys ever that show password? Because I delete and say, okay, I want to make sure I am typing this password correctly. You know how you do that? Some you know, so it lets me visually see that I am typing that part right.
So the question is, are we ever going to put a show password functionality of the hidden password? It's something that you can definitely request. We do have our development team over there right now listening to the conversation. So it's something that will be in their mind. Right now, since it's not difficult to edit. If you forget it, just come right back in here and delete it and retype it. Try to make it something that's easy to remember, but obviously secure enough. And then you can, again, write your hint there. The only people with access. Nobody's going to be able to get into your race to screw anything up, essentially. So this is where I was talking about with the dates. I see a lot of people enable the check-in app race morning. Don't do that. Enable it before. Test it out. We talk about this a million times. I am on info at support too, not just the RaceDay tools. I see a lot of I can't find my race. It's the most common thing. All right. So once you download the app, Google Play Store or the Apple Store, you can see it right there. I don't think that's changed. We did have a big update recently, but that still should look the same. You can see your search races there on the middle image. There's a bunch in there right now. If you guys do want to check them out, I have my test race live. So if you want to come down to the demo room, I can show you presets and stuff like that on my own test race. And then the other big thing, especially with volunteers, is if you select the gear icon when you are in your race, you can set up an identifier for the device that's being used. When you go back into RunSignup later, you have stats. You can see which device checked in whom, different presets that were used, things like that. The stats are available to you. What we do is try to show you the data so that you can learn from it. And obviously, we all want to get better. All right, so first thing you do, use Critter, is search for your race. This is where the password comes in when you log in. It will ask you for your password. This is where everyone will be able to enter it. The initial configuration is going to be a default configuration that you see. You will be able to, as soon as you're in the race, you will be able to check people in with the default configuration. I'm sure a lot of you have used it in the recent past. There is actually an update that just came out this week. Coming into this weekend, that does change the looks of that. You can no longer edit your default presets. You now are prompted to create your own presets. This is what it'll look like as you're checking somebody in. So as soon as you get into your race, you will see a sync that's pulling in all the data from RunSignup with the participants. It'll show you, you can see the check mark on who's checked in or who's not checked in and some basic information in the view. To create your presets, it's that gear icon in the top right. So this is what it looks like now. If you haven't seen it, update your app, go take a look at it now. It does look a little bit different now. So you'll see you have your event presets and you have your race configurations. the way you should operate it now, a good example that we talked about yesterday was Crisp has a lot of events where he has volunteers and staff using the check-in app. So he's trying to create, and if he has 2 events, a 5K and a half marathon, he's trying to create 5K presets where he's going to have a 5K preset, a half marathon preset for staff, a 5K preset, half marathon preset for volunteers. He wants staff to be able to make changes on the back end, such as changing a giveaway, different things like that. He only wants volunteers to be able to see the information and check people in. So he has 4 presets created. Once you create a preset, it's not automatically applied to your race. You then need to create a configuration. So the way he was explaining it to me on how he uses it at his events is he will create a staff configuration and a volunteer configuration. Within those configurations, it means if the staff person is using the phone, the only presets they will be able to access are the staff ones that Chris created ahead of time. So you'll never run into a situation in which a volunteer is signing into a configuration for a staff member and be able to make changes and potentially screw something up, as long as you're setting this up ahead of time, setting it up properly, setting up the devices for them and communicating it with them. So a good way to remember it is preset is what you used to see with like editing the default, what information you collect or what information you show, bib number, giveaway sizes, what you're able to change. The configuration then applies it to a certain device based on how you set everything up. So the question was, can you make it so that they have to select a configuration versus being on the default? So it's automatically on the default when anyone signs in. But when you're configuring the devices to hand to your volunteers, you can select that configuration and then lock it so that they can't make a change.
I would strongly advise, just to add to that, I would strongly advise having a volunteer check-in procedure where if they're going to be using their own device, someone from your team is doing this for them, so it's not out of your control. The more things you put out of your control, roll on those dice as to things that can go south.
I was gonna say, there's one feature that we do have that is really nice. When you load a race for the first time and the system sees that there are configurations created for it, like let's say you volunteer and there's a staff configuration. When a volunteer installs the app, loads the race for the first time, set up a pop-up that says, hey, there's some configurations for this race. Would you like to load one? It brings you to the list and you pick. So the volunteer basically just comes in, loads the app, opens the race, says, hey, are you a staff member or a volunteer? Boom, they're good to go.
So where do you name this device? How do you know which device?
Are you talking about the device identifier?
Yes.
Where you name your device? So when you're it's in the race list.
Yeah,
In the home screen where you see the list of races that you can search, if you click the gear icon, it's the device identifier. So you would click that. If you're looking at it right now, if you're on the list of races, click the gear icon.
and if you are loading the device for the first time, it'll ask you to assign an identifier.
It's the image all the way on the right there. You should see it. And you can change the device name.
So if you're on the race name and click this gear, it brings you into here, and you can hit the black change device name.
All right. So we just threw up some images too of what some of the things that you can do in the preset. So you obviously need to create a name for your preset. You can't save it without a name. The check-in steps that you want to go through, what information is displayed in information changes. So that's like what we were talking about, where for the staff, you're going to want to allow information changes. For volunteers, you can turn off any possible information changes. And then the configuration is the one all the way on the right. You can see if you've used the app before, it looks very similar to what it did before. You would name your configuration and you would pick which events to apply it to. So if you only want staff members checking in the 5K and you only want volunteers checking in the fun run, this is where you would configure that. So now that you have your presets and configurations complete, you can focus on race day. So this is just the basic usage of the app. Once you have everything set up, you can simply search, and this is down in the demo room, so you can actually see it in action today. We also have a label printer down there, so you can test that. as well. So you type their name. If it's a uncommon name and there's only one user that pops up, it automatically pulls into their profile. Otherwise, you can click on their name to go into the profile to check them in. This is where you can make any edits. This is where you check them in. Once you click the check-in button, this is where you will see the print icon, which again, we can show you downstairs. So like with this specific preset, you can see that you can edit a participant's corral. So just one of the functionalities of information changes. So this is where we're trying to push is this is a perfect usage and time to use dynamic bib assignment, especially as we get these label printers and the software is functioning that way. It saves you time. You don't have people filtering through pre-labeled bibs, pre-checked in bibs, pre-numbered bibs, trying to find a specific person in that bottleneck that Chris was talking about. This is where dynamic bib assignment should help you save some time there. So when you go in and you click on their name, you can see that neither of them are checked in the top left image. When you click check in, you can add their bib number. You click save and continue. This bottom left image is where you would see the print button. You don't hit go back from that screen. You do click save and continue, and it takes you right back to the list, and you can see that the person is now checked in. There are 3 lines in the top left-hand corner when you're in the race. I just have an overview of what each of them do. I can run through them really quick. Top one is lock race, so you can't make the device can't make changes to the race like presets and configurations, stuff like that. Quick check-in allows you to use the camera to scan a QR code to check the person in. Check-in stats you can see on RunSignup. You can also see in RaceDay or in the RaceDay check-in app to see which devices are logged in to what, who's checking whom in. We did this for the Scott's Coffee run over in Morristown, and we were able to see which devices are being used, who's checking them in at what time, because we were on a rotation of who was working the check-in app. It was pretty cool. A lot of support questions I do get are about queued edits when you are in a situation where you don't have great internet. When you're emailing us asking why a change isn't pushing from the app up to RunSignup, first thing to check, queued edit. It's going to sit there. The change, you will be able to see what change you made. It just hasn't pushed up yet. So wait for it to connect, give it some time. It should push through. You can force the queued edit through as well. Force refresh like that, like I just said, updates the app, tries to reconnect everything. You can easily switch over to the volunteer mode. I didn't dive into volunteer mode check-in. Very similar to participant mode. You're just checking volunteers for your events in. And then get support, pretty key. That sends an email to me and several other people so that we can answer your questions like you have now. And then back to races just allows you to go back into the home screen of the app if you need to change an identifier or anything like that. I included, like I said, before I started, I included some links. This label printing one is really cool. There's a couple videos in there as well, plus stats on the check-in app. So if you want to take a look at them once we give you the presentation, feel free.
So before we jump into questions, I just want to go back into the Timer Plus side of things with the check-in app. So there's some things that you can do to help this process as a timer, and it really elevates your services. It's free. You just have to do a little bit of work. And that is when you're doing things like helping them out with, say, oh, right, hey, when's your pre-event email going out? If you never used our email database, learning how to use replacement tags. Something as simple as adding a QR code replacement tag at the top of their email that says, bring this email on your phone. Now you can scan the QR code and you're not typing in people's names, right? Has anybody ever used that function before? It's awesome. You can burn through every 6 seconds. You can check somebody in. I know because I timed it for 500 people nonstop, 6 seconds a pop. So there are no lines when you start talking about 6 seconds a pop, right? The other thing is what we were just talking about in terms of reports. Your day does not end when you fold up the mats, throw them in the van, right? You start going into these reports. You might not be going into financial reports. You might not be going into like race reg, like overtime reports. However, you can go into these check-in reports and start building out like a small PDF or something like that and giving it to the race director and saying, hey, this is what our profile looked like of check-in. This is how many devices we had. If you don't rename them, all of them are either iOS or Android RaceDay CheckIn, and you're only going to have 2 bars. If you rename all of them, every single device that's used, you're going to have a different bar for every single one with a summary total above it. You're going to be able to see every 5 minutes how many people each device checked in. And so you can turn around to Race Director and give them valuable information about how they can manage their resources, AKA volunteer hours. You can say, look, you don't need 20 people there from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., but at 10 a.m., you need maybe double the people. So save those volunteer hours for here. And then, so these are things that you've got to think about. Value adds for you as a timer to a race director don't necessarily cost you money. You just got to have to use up here. Like, what does a race director want to know? Because you guys have a lot of data that can help them out. Things like, hey, when are we expecting our first person at mile 3? You can look at the pace at mile 1 and tell them the expectation, right? So like, those are the kind of things that these tools can help you with that you might not have thought about. Check-in app presets or configurations for emergency personnel, that they can have an e-contact and e-phone number. So now they're not radioing back to race headquarters. They can be on the check-in app, scan a bib, and now they've got who to call, right? So just things to think about. We have a couple minutes for questions. Just one? And we have the demo room as well, which all of this is in the demo
Yes,
room.
you can see it live in the demo room as well.
Yeah. Allison mentioned about using Square with the check-in app. I
That
guess,
is
so
for ticket.
Ticket check-in.
tickets.
only for ticketing.
Currently, yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Or-
Time out. Well, okay. You say it, I'll say it again, and then I'll answer.
If I want, like, a staff member to get the same settings or get that race.
Yep.
is there a QR code for that?
No, but all you have to do, so the question was, if I set up all the configurations on my personal device, how do I get those configurations onto a staff member's device? So once you set them up on your device, you can sync them to the cloud. So there's a local setting and a cloud setting. A local is only going to be applied to your specific device, right? So cloud configuration is going to be available to pull down from the cloud. So once you sync that up to the cloud, let's say you have 2 configurations, like you talked about, a staff and a volunteer configuration. Now, anytime that somebody logs in, they'll have 2 options of configurations to pull down, one being volunteer, one being staff. Or you can set everything up locally on every device and you'll be bolder than me real quick. Any other? So just to reiterate what James said, the cloud configurations are now true cloud configurations. So if you're on your device and you need to push out a change to a cloud configuration, you edit that, push it back up to the cloud as a change, and all the other devices are using that configuration set are also updated. So you're not deleting a configuration and then going in and choosing a new configuration. Yes.
So I have a custom question that I want to be able to change.
Okay, so I have a custom question I want to change the answer to at some point on race day. Currently, if I go to change that from a number 1 to 5, there's 4 or 5 steps, and I won't have the luxury of the time to hit 4 or 5 buttons. Is there a way we could look at making that change faster?
So there is the ability to limit which questions what is it called? Give me a
Update
second.
registration information.
The pipeline of questions. And that's kind of a specific question. So we'll chat about that in the demo room. but
Gotcha.
Yeah.
This question is more just, I guess, brainstorming. Learning the app is not hard. It's pretty easy once you start playing with it. The question is, when you have new clients and they have new volunteers, the way I've been showing how those volunteers to use it is I just record a video like has a the phone has an option where it can record me moving through my phone, and I just kind of speak into it, and then I send the video to the client. He sends it to the volunteers, and then so forth.
Mhm.
That's the way I've been doing it. I don't know, is anybody else doing it differently, or is there another? To me, that's pretty efficient, but I just don't know if there's a
Yeah.
better way to do it.
No, I think that's a great idea. It's kind of very similar to also providing a fact sheet. Like if you're mailing them the bibs already, right? If you're not going to be there, stick 2 copies of how-to guides with your brand on there. Again, like brand management. This is your company providing these services. So like put a copy of it in there, because goodness knows all volunteers aren't watching it like they're supposed to, right? So we can work as hard as we want to, but we can't force them. But with that fact sheet, now they know if this happens, do this, and put your phone number at the bottom so they can call you. Because, as a timer, as an event partner, you're kind of that line of defense. If they're always calling RunSignup for support, who are you? Like you guys should be the one doing that support. And I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying they're not working with you as much if they're always working with us. If you're always the one with the answer, you're always the one they're going to go to. And I'm not saying you have to have every answer. You can ask, like, that's what we're here for, is to help support you guys too. Yeah.
Yeah, we did the same thing with the video. I've got 19 seconds. Lady walks in holding a baby with her phone. She holds her phone up. The check-in person holds his phone up 19 seconds later. She's out.
Yep. Yep. So it's a very simple process, pairing those QR codes of registration details on the pre-event email, and a QR code for dynamic bib assignment on the bib itself, and it's gone. And so now with the label printer, you can also do t-shirts and stuff like that, giveaways in another location, because you're not having to handwrite if they're picking out multiple bibs or multiple shirts or things like that. You can put that information on the back of the bib.
Definitely test that out.
Yeah,
today.
yeah. Do
Definitely
not
test
show up
that out.
on Friday
Yeah.
with the thing in the box saying, I'm going to use it. It's going to go great. Please test it out in advance, because we're just providing the ability to print. We're not supporting the printer itself, right? If you struggle with how to print on a normal printer, this might not be for you. So I think it's lunchtime.
I think we're time. Yep.
Yeah.
So lunch is downstairs from here.
It's downstairs now.
Right.